When you're young and in the Hamptons and just drinking all the time, it is so easy for things to just blow up.
Summer House is a reality show on Bravo, as we mentioned. It's about a group of friends who share a house over the summer in the Hamptons.
When I look at Bravo and Summer House, I find it very, very interesting. Every single franchise that they come up with, it's like a little community. They're just so good at capturing mindshare and staying relevant throughout the year, between seasons.
If they stopped after season 2, you never would have been a fan. You have to have the conviction that what you're doing is working. When you're building content, when you're building a series, that it gets better over time.
As a marketer, I'm fascinated at their craft and how they're able to do that.
Having a series or multiple series that is in service to your audience is the most important thing.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
Listen to this.
Listen to this.
Memorable?
Well, then be less boring. Boring?
Remarkable.
Remarkable. Remarkable.
Remarkable. Oh.
I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. You're listening to Remarkable. This week, we're talking marketing lessons from Summer House.
I said all summer that I have been dating other people in the city. That's bullshit.
You guys are literally coming at me. It's not fair.
You're sharing a house.
I'm not kidding on you.
All summer long.
That.
Carl.
Lindsay.
Things are on fire.
With the help of our special guest, Chief Marketing Officer at Goldcast, Kelly Cheng. Kelly, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on the show. We're huge fans of Goldcast. Caspian is a Goldcast partner. We're doing a webinar series on Goldcast. So huge fans, excited to chat with you about content and marketing. And of course, Summer House. So why the heck did you pick Summer House to talk about today?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I don't like to broadcast that I'm like a reality TV junkie. So I'm kind of outing myself here, just like putting it out on the internet. But I am fascinated with reality TV. And I think that I started getting into it, honestly, during COVID. I had never come across Bravo before. I've seen it around, but I've never really dove into it. And when I started diving in, I dove in deep. And so a big fan of the Housewives franchise. Below Deck is awesome. As a marketer, I find Bravo just fascinating at their craft. Every single franchise that they come up with, it's like a little community, and there's spin-offs. Each character, or not even character, these are real people. They go off and create their own brands. And so I just find it fascinating how they're able to kind of build this big brand engine. And as a marketer, it's just fascinating. I think there's so many things, especially on the B2B side, that marketing is typically boring. And I draw a lot of inspiration on the consumer side. When I look at Bravo and Summer House, and specifically that show, I find it very, very interesting because not only do they have this storyline that happens during the summer, and there's all this news coverage that happens during the summer when they're shooting, and all the speculation on what's going to happen, and there's social media involved. And then there's this whole waiting period before it actually goes live in the wintertime. And in the wintertime, everything that happened in the summer gets brought up again. So that conversation just continues in many different forums, whether it be in the comments or if it's in the Reddit threads. I just think that they're just so good at capturing mindshare and staying relevant throughout the year, between seasons, and being able to kind of take over conversations. So yeah, as a marketer, I'm fascinated at their craft and how they're able to do that.
I love it. Such a good topic to discuss. And what's interesting to me is that I felt this way sort of to make a comparison to a different franchise in Marvel and the way that they built out the MCU. I felt while the MCU was happening, we're oh man, this is all kind of crazy. And then when you look back at the totality of it, you're oh, they just pulled off one of the craziest things in film history. And I kind of feel that way with Bravo, where we're now that we sort of are able to look back at things like Summer House, which is going like 9 seasons, Vanderpump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're like, they have built out so many franchises that, and like with all like stunning levels of brand consistency, but differentiation between the different shows and stuff. It's really like, it's truly a remarkable achievement.
It really is, and it's like, you know, if I go down the history, let's go down a little bit of history, like a little journey there. You know, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is really where Vanderpump started. So
Yeah.
Vanderpump was a spin-off of the Real Housewives. And then when Summer House came on, they really leaned on Vanderpump to be able to bring that same audience to Summer House. Like there's a crossover episode that happens, and then Summer House kind of took off, and then they created this other thing called Winter House that happens in the winter. And then they went ahead and said, okay, we're going to do Summer House in the Vineyard. And so they're able to really spin it and really be able to grow their footprint. So it's almost like a brand within a brand within a brand within a brand, and it all kind of takes a life on its own.
It really does. And I knew that these were super popular, but it wasn't until us starting to do Remarkable that I realized like how, why people were so sort of enthralled with it. Anyways, yeah, that's so interesting. Zooming out, tell us about your role as CMO of Goldcast and all the cool stuff that y'all have going on.
Yeah, so I've been at Goldcast. It'll be 4 years in about 2 weeks, the end of September. So it's the longest company I've ever been a part of. And when people ask me what keeps me here at Goldcast, I always start with the people. I work with incredible founders. I really lucked out. This is the first set of founders I've ever worked for, and they're incredibly humble people that take feedback extremely well and really understand marketing, and allow me to do the marketing that I do so well. And the second piece is the product that we're building. So it's really fun being at a company selling to people like myself. And so for those that don't know Goldcast is an AI-powered video content platform. We build software to help marketers not only run, extremely engaging and beautiful live webinars, but also, record high quality local video content. And then we use AI to help you turn that long form video content into other assets like social ready clips, blog posts, email follow-ups. And we're coming up with some really interesting agentic workflows to help marketers do even more with video. And a big part of why I love working at Goldcast is because I get to work really closely with our product teams to really craft the product roadmap and really tell them, this is a gap that I see in the market right now. It would be really cool if we were able to do that. And then 2 weeks later, I get to play around with the prototype. So it's a very unique position that I get to be in, and I don't take it for granted. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about Goldcast. I lead the marketing team. We have a product marketing function, a growth marketing and demand generation function, and then we also have a content and brand marketing function. My team's completely remote and distributed. I've got folks all over the US across all the time zones here. Half of my team is actually based in India. And then I've also got folks out in the UK. So we are completely global, and it's a lot of fun, learning about each other.
Meredith, what the heck is Summer House?
So, Summer House is a reality show on Bravo, as we mentioned. It's about a group of friends who share a house over the summer in the Hamptons. And the Hamptons are this like wealthy, beachy area of Long Island that's an escape for New Yorkers from the city.
You think you are the boss of the house, and you're not. I'm just done. I'm done.
So, you get tired of being in the city for the week, you go to the Hamptons. As like a little mini vacation. And so the production company, True Entertainment, rents a house for the summer and sets up cameras, microphones, basically like surveillance everywhere. And then filming happens on weekends when the cast come to spend the weekend there partying. And then they record the cast 24/7 and take notes of notable happenings that they're going to sort of drum up in the show. The idea initially came from Vanderpump Rules, as we mentioned. The idea was like, Bravo wanted to create this spin-off that was East Coast based versus West Coast. And they liked this idea of a group of friends who work in the city but spend their weekends partying in the Hamptons. They initially did a casting call, and that's where they met Kyle Cook, who was one of the original cast members. And Kyle was basically like, it'd be better if people actually knew each other rather than having like a bunch of strangers come and spend the summer in the house. So since then, they've sort of cast people within their inner circle, folks that may not know each other directly, but are in the same, not just demographic, but like the same sort of friend groups. There may or may not be some scripting and sort of like arranged scenes, but like any reality show, it's sort of a blend of
We don't care.
authentic, we don't care, authentic and sort of like nudged content, like, hey, why don't you, we'll arrange to have these two people in a room together at the same time.
Hold on. What do you think, Kelly? Nudged? Scripted? What do you think? Do you care?
I don't think it's fully scripted. I think nudged is a good term for it because I think they definitely encourage certain scenarios to happen. But however those scenarios happen, I think the individuals have the freedom to let it play out. And I think when you're nudged and when you're young and in the Hamptons and just drinking all the time, it is so easy for things to just blow up.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
Yeah,
Get two personalities.
You don't need to nudge too hard. It's just and I think just like also at this point in time, I mean, we're 9 seasons in, but we're 20 something, almost 30 years into reality TV at this point. Like everyone knows the game. You know what I mean? Like we know what we're all doing here. So I feel like that some of the scripting and stuff is necessary. But the producers, I think, do a wonderful job on all these shows of really getting the most out of sometimes, very mundane things.
Yeah, I kind of feel like people know too, like the character, the cast, the real people, know too when to like amp it up too. Like, and it might come off as natural, but they're like kind of playing it up a little bit.
They know
I think
what they signed up for, like if you do one season and you're kind of painted as the villain, you kind of know the role that you play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like the appeal too is like you get this sort of like intimate and inside view of the lifestyle and the personalities of like these young, beautiful, wealthy people in this like beautiful location. They're also often throwing like big themed parties, and that's become sort of a staple of the show. What I thought was interesting was like there is some like real stuff happening there for sure. Like the cast have some responsibilities. Like there's nobody doing their hair, makeup, clothing. Like that's all them. The parties the cast pay for. They are responsible for the chores and the upkeep of the house while they're there. So there's real stuff happening for sure. And overall, the show's been going since 2017. There are 9 seasons. There's a 10th in production, and it's been nominated in 2022 for the MTV Movie and TV Award for Best Docu-Reality Show, and another nomination for Best Reality Star for Lindsay Hubbard. And you can watch it on Peacock.
Docu-reality show. I didn't even know that was a term.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Docu-reality.
It does make sense. I just never thought of it.
Kelly, I'm wondering if there's been like a storyline that's really kept you watching.
A storyline that's really kept me watching. Not really, honestly, not a single storyline. I find all of it very, very, very interesting. And like I said, I tune in to help my brain tune out a little bit and just purely be entertained. I think that the outrageous parts of it where I'm like, I can't believe these are real people and this is what they're doing. That kind of keeps me watching because it's just like it's not even like it's a fantasy, but it's like I cannot believe that this actually happens. And so that's I think if I go back to I don't remember which season it was, but it was the COVID season where it wasn't just the weekend that they were staying there, but it was like the full like 6 weeks that they were all living in the house, and there was just all the screaming happening, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm back in college. So I think that's really what keeps me watching is like the blow-ups.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think just one of the things that I think is obvious at this point, and I think is we can get into some B2B takeaways here in a second, but like I think just having the same people coming back is such a smart move. And like you mentioned it, Meredith, that they sort of like had one or two paths that they could have gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they had gone the other path, how is it different than Big Brother, or how is it different than like how does it truly differentiate from a different type of show? And I think there's other shows that like reality shows that have been able to like really differentiate. Obviously, we've talked about Love Island a bunch, and we've talked about a ton of different reality shows to traders and all sorts of different stuff that have sort of unique spins on reality TV, which speaks to just like the breadth of ideas that you could put into reality TV that, you know, that there's so many different things that you can do. But I think that truly building long-term relationships with characters, with these people who are the real people, not characters, but also are characters, is the magic, right? It's the magic that they found and that they tapped into. And like, that is the Bravo universe doesn't take off without all of these people, you know, spinning off all these different series. Like, oh, this person's popular, give them their own series, and or give this, you know, new idea or whatever. And Summer House is just like such a easy idea when like to think about, but you're like, how do you differentiate that, right? Like how is that different from any other reality show? And it turns out like it is totally different, and that it's just because the people that are there.
I agree. I think that they do a really good job of casting the right personalities and bringing the cast together into the same house where, you know, it either explodes or magic happens. And I think the cast themselves that they bring together, the continuity piece is really important. Like I think throughout the 9 seasons, there's a lot of OGs that have been around since season 1, and you really, really build that like rapport with the audience, and people are super invested in, you know, what you do next, your history and everything. And that really comes through because a lot of these individuals on Summer House, they have their own podcasts. Like they spin off on their own podcast where they have their own audience that is completely not related to Bravo. And so they're able to kind of build their own fan base, and which I'm sure there's a lot of monetary incentives. The more Instagram followers you have, the more brand deals you get and all that. So it's really like a platform for them to really grow their own personal brand. But I think that those two things kind of work together with making the show so popular and succgesual.
For sure. I mean, it is like 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, right? It's like all of those different things like really are geared towards like driving as much engagement to their audience as possible. And like Bravo does not have a fraction of the success that it has without social media. Like without all of these people owning and controlling their own channels that they're monetizing and doing all this other stuff with, and the interaction between fans on social media together, and the outrage and the this and the that, is like there's no way it doesn't happen. But you got to make something worth talking about, right? And like making something worth talking about like watching a bunch of people like get drunk at a house in Montauk, like that's harder than it looks. You know, like that's actually not that easy of a thing. Otherwise, there would be a lot more, you know, smash hits like this that have done 9 seasons. You mentioned, but the way that they sort of keep consistency, but also bring in new, fresh stuff is like pretty crazy. Like 9 seasons of a show is a lot of seasons. That's a long time, right?
I mean, I'm very curious about how the producers, what kind of social listening tools do they have? Because it's extremely powerful. Like they can, you know, figure out who to kill, or not to kill, but to get rid of next season based off of, fan-based sentiment. If someone's really annoyed with this person and they're like, I will never watch again if this person's back.
This is how adult relationships work. If you have a problem, you confront that person directly. You don't talk to the entire house.
They're able to make those decisions for casting based off of what's in the comments, what's in the forums, like what people, like just like the overall audience sentiment is. And there's got to be some kind of tooling that happens in the background that's helping them get this feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's another thing too, is like maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's like, okay, nobody's talking about, Ian on this episode, this season. Like, he's got to go. Nobody likes him or hates him. He just exists. You know what I mean? So it's like, get him out of there. Whereas, somebody where it's like, maybe everybody hates this person, but it drives, engagement. Yeah, it's just fast. And like, I think just, we can get into B2B marketing takeaways, but like, my first takeaway here is the craft that goes into making the mundane spectacular is like really hard. And no reality show nailed it on their first season. It's like so hard to do that. But if you keep doing it season after season, like you can, like, for example, Kelly, you didn't start watching this season 1. You came in season 5. But how many times in marketing do you talk to a CEO or somebody and they go, well, we're going to do a pilot. And if it doesn't work after 3 episodes, like, okay, we're going to stop. Oh, if our webinar series, we're going to do 5 of these. And if it doesn't work, it's going to stop. Whereas Kelly comes into watching this show 5 years into the show. You know what I mean? Like, like if they stopped after season 2, you never would have been a fan. And like, I just think that you have to have the conviction that what you're doing is working and is gonna, that when you're building content, when you're building a series, that like it gets better over time, and that you can bring people in to it.
I think that's so true. And I think that's also what people are people in B2B marketing are typically like more risk adverse. And so I think to make this kind of investment, say like, we're going to start a podcast and it's going to be, we're do many, many seasons. It would be so hard for year after year to continue saying like, oh, we should keep doing this. Especially if early on you don't see the traction. But I think it's the consistency and the investment, but also it's engaging with your audience, knowing what, like listening to the feedback and actually making changes to, whatever content you're putting out, whatever show you're putting out to feed what's being asked for. And so I think Bravo does a really good job of, almost every single franchise they have has at least 5 seasons under their belt if they're, if they've been around for a while. And they've done a really good job of just being consistent. They know the format that works. And if it's not working, they kind of change it up and listen to the comments, the threads, just to see what would make people stick around if they made those changes.
Yeah. And so let me expand on that, because this is something I hear a lot of, and it drives me crazy when someone is trying to think of a series where they're like, oh, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And you're like, and then you go take a show example where you're like, well, this company, who's one of your competitors, has been doing their show for 270 episodes. Do you think that they would stop doing that? If it would, like what would be the circumstances that would lead them to stop doing that show? It would probably have to not be working. So they've made it to 270. Why do you think that they're doing that? It's like, because it's working. And it's like, for like, we don't have, Bravo resources at our companies to say, hey, we can roll out like 7 different shows and see which one is the best. But we can look at the competitive landscape and say, hey, there's a bunch of shows in our space that are doing really successful. These formats probably work. They could be better, but they work. The type of stuff that they're talking about works. Like, we could make it better. And what is our version of this and our flavor and whatever? And I hear this all the time. And people will be like, oh, well, there's already a show about blank. You're like, yeah, but what's the chance that host is people's favorite person? You know what I mean? Or what's the chance that people want to listen to a 50-minute version? Why don't you do a 10-minute version? Or like, and so I think what Bravo has done so well is the same format that they know that people likes, but they switch out locations. They switch out the people. They switch out the bringing in new people or keeping people consistent, and like all of those things, all those little chess pieces that you can move around make a show really different. And yet, like in B2B, we're just like, well, okay, 3 episodes in, like let's kill it. And you're like, or like, let's just not do it at all. It's not worth it.
I think you're so right, but I think there is an element here where there's a key difference, is that the average tenure of a marketing team at any given company isn't very long. And so oftentimes when I feel like big decisions, like, particular programs get canceled, it's because there's a leadership change, and, they're changing things up, and the host no longer works for the company. And so who's going to carry on? So I think that is also an element, because if you think about a lot of these shows, executive producer is Andy Cohen, and Andy Cohen's been around for a long time. He's not going anywhere. And so it's kind of like, I think that's the piece where like B2B marketing has to figure out, is how to have continuity even when the infrastructure of your organization is changing.
That's a fantastic point. We have shows that we've worked on for 5 years here at Caspian that have changed hosts, that have changed the name of the show, that, now we're all in on AI and talking about AI, or, whatever it is. And I think that what people miss about that is that like all of those pieces are changeable. But having a series that you can, or multiple series that is serving in service to your audience, is the most important thing. That's like, whatever, like you can subscribe to this, whatever webinar series or whatever it is, video series, podcast, whatever. And that we're just going to be focused forever on bringing you the best stuff that we think is going to help you. And like, that's it. That's the North Star. And like, the host may change, the format might change, the name might change, the topics might change, but like, that's what this is. And there's so few companies that understand that reality. Like that is the goal. It's kind of mind blowing to me, but I hear what you're saying. It's like, yeah, if you have 18 months before you get fired, you got to make moves and you got to do something fast. But it's like, that's the short termism that, is not helpful. We were talking to a company that like their competitor literally has a show that has like 500 episodes. I'm like, why do you think they're doing that? And it's like their founders are invested in the show and they want it to keep going. So there's the continuity piece that you talked about, right? So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, super important to have that buy-in that's, stable.
Another B2B takeaway from Summer House is just about sort of like, taking big bets. And I mean, it's not the biggest stretch, but I think the format of doing Summer House the way that they did it is kind of different. When they first started it, it's like, this is different, right? It's on Montauk or whatever.
To put a camera in a bedroom where, anything can happen.
When you and Luke make up, you just decide to not talk about it at all with me?
You could ask me what's happening. I didn't even
Hannah,
see
we're
you that day.
friends.
I mean, we're not friends.
You'd have to have cast people that are just down to be recorded 24/7. Like it's pretty risky.
Yeah, it is risky. And I think that they deserve a lot of credit for saying, hey, I think that there's a section of our audience that will come to this new thing. And there's also a section of the audience that will be net new. And I think that that's like another really good takeaway that we see a lot of times, where someone will have a successful series. Let's say it's for CIOs, and say, hey, why don't you create a series for like director level IT or something like that? They're like, well, we already have this show, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, yeah, but CIOs and director level IT people think about the world completely different. Why wouldn't you make a second thing for those people? They're like, I don't know, we already have this thing. And like, to me, it's just like, it makes no sense. I'm like, or another good one is industry verticals. Like, oh, we do a lot of, whatever, gaming or travel or whatever. It's like, why don't you just make a show for your travel industry? And they're like, well, I don't know, because we want to be able to put everybody in one thing. I'm like, yeah, but that's not what Bravo does. They don't just assume that every single person is going to like one thing. They have a portfolio of shows that are for different types of people. And there's some people watch all of them, and there's some people that don't.
Yeah. I mean, I think the opportunity for kind of like the B2B takeaway here is like, take a show like Summer House. There's a cast of all sorts of people, different personalities, all with different challenges. And there's 9 seasons. And so you're kind of following on for 9 years, learning about their development over time. And if you're talking about, B2B software, you're always, creating software to help a particular buyer, particular job title, helping someone do better at their job with some kind of software. So it's kind of like building in public. Like, we're all going through this AI transformation right now. I'm marketing to marketers. So I could just put up a show and say, like, watch me learn about AI and marketing, and watch me win and watch me fail, and really start building an audience that kind of follows along, like maybe my personal reality journey of, building in public and using AI tools like Goldcast, and really being able to organically plant tools like that I would like to. So I think that there's a lot of learnings of making B2B marketing a bit more human, and drawing those learnings from reality TV about building in public, because at the end of the day, you're selling software to help an individual, that will ultimately help an organization.
I think that sort of like honesty and transparency and sort of those pieces are more important than ever too. With AI, where there's a lot of sort of like posturing, or people just not really knowing, or just a lot of like nervousness and all those things, that if you can sort of be transparent, it is going to work a lot better. What else? Other B2B takeaways from Summer House?
Not particularly with Summer House. I think it's more of like a Bravo thing in general. But I learned, I think 2 years ago, that Bravo puts on a conference out in Las Vegas called BravoCon, that people actually pay thousands of dollars and fly to Las Vegas to go to. Like, for me, if I'm putting on a conference, I'm giving free tickets to my customers. Like, I want people to show up. They don't have to do that. Like, people are willingly paying money to go to a conference in Vegas. And I'm like, that is so similar to like what you would see for like Adobe Summit or something like that. People would just like cough up the money to go and engage and be part of that universe. So I find it very fascinating that they're kind of like a tech company in that sense, where they have all these brands, and then they have a conference where they're kind of like serving their audience, and just allowing them to like get further into, whatever franchise they're getting into, and using that as a platform to maybe launch new franchises, like new products. So I just find that parallel very interesting.
Can you imagine how fun that conference is?
It's scary, like, how fun it might be.
Like it's just a bunch of like-minded people that just want to have fun and talk about, the dumb stuff they watch on TV. Like, what's better than that?
Yeah. And it's like, you have your thought leaders on the stage, your cast kind of talking about their journey. And I think it's just a very, very interesting concept. And the fact that they've launched something like this. I don't know any other network that has launched a conference like this, other than Bravo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's like Comic-Con, which is not tied to like a network or anything like that, and that's been wildly successful for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it that's so cool is that it's like it's purely just for the audience, right? Like B2B conferences are for people to transact, dollars. You know what I mean? And perhaps we could take some cues from making a conference that's like just for your audience. But yeah, I mean, it's that, I don't think that there's meeting rooms and breakout sessions and different things like that. Not that those are wrong, but
yeah, I mean, I this year at Goldcast, we've been talking a lot about this terminology called mindshare. And so in the B2B world, there's all these statistics out there, and I'm going to throw one out. There's this 95-5 rule, where only 95% of your audience is actually not in the market to buy. Only 5% is at any given time. And for the last couple of years, marketers, especially demand marketers, have been super, super indexed on those intent signals. I want to, get hand raisers and scale the number of hand raisers. The reality is that the number of hand raisers is not scaling. And so if you're only focusing on that 5%, you're ignoring that 95%. And when that 95% becomes that 5%, you really want to make sure that you build that runway, that brand, that mind share. So then they do remember you. Because another statistic is in B2B software, the number of vendors that anyone's considering is getting shorter and shorter, that short list of vendors.
Yep.
It used to be like, 9 to 7 vendors you'd consider. Now it's like 3 to 4. And the challenge with that is that there's so many more options these days. Like if I'm in the market for a chatbot, there's hundreds out there, but I already know like the top 3 brands in my mind that I can rattle off. And those are the ones that I'm going to go to first. Why? It's because of the mind share. And for my marketing team for Goldcast, what we're trying to help other marketers do is help build mind share. And how do you do that? It's through content. And so Bravo does a really, really good job of creating content, because not only are they creating the content from like the original series that they're putting out, every single episode has like an after show that you can watch on Peacock. So that's additional episodes that you can watch. Then the cast is out there doing their own podcasts, and that's extra content. And then they're on Instagram and Twitter, and they're putting out the social media. That's extra content. And then they now have BravoCon, where I bet a majority of that investment is actually creating content that they can continue build mindshare off of. So they're just really, really good at churning out content that people want to consume, to keep them top of mind. Because a season of a reality show probably runs maybe 2 months. But there's an extra 10 months that you have to make sure that you have got air cover so people don't forget about you. And so they're really good at keeping that drumbeat of, how do you remind people that Summer House is coming back, there's drama, there's things to tune into, there's things happening.
I'm not going to live my life not knowing if you made out with other girls or not, because you black out and you don't remember. You. Seriously, Kyle. I'm so much better than this.
I applaud them for being able to kind of keep that content engine going, where on the B2B side, it's challenging. And a lot of the challenges is tooling. Like, video is what people want to watch, but video is hard to do, or historically. And so now with all these AI tools, like you can make video a lot more accessible for marketers to produce without like super, super large budgets. So I think that there's a lot of learnings from how to continue getting mind share, throughout a buying journey, which can be very, very long if you're an enterprise software, that B2B marketers should tune into.
100%. And I think too that I would bet, and I don't know this to be true, but I would bet that if you sat down with some Bravo executives a while back, I bet you that they had a gap in summer programming, because the way that the content calendar works in for advertisers is there's a huge fall push. There's the the winter push, and summer programming is usually just not as, because there's not as many people watching TV because it's summer. And I guarantee you that they're oh, we have a gap in summer, and let's just do that, right? And so I think it's also interesting too that in that time frame, it's I guarantee you, I don't know Bravo's calendar, we'd have to look at it, but I guarantee you that it feeds perfectly into what they're trying to do, right? So there's the Summer House show that needs to sort of be able to work mindshare, but also Bravo broadly is helping people go from show to show to show to show throughout the course of an entire year. And again, this is, and I think this is such a good takeaway for B2B companies, is it's not about you thinking about Bravo for the entire year. It's you thinking about the different shows that Bravo creates, going from show to show to show. People don't just you can't just be you can't watch Bravo. Bravo is shows, right? And I think that it's the same thing for B2B companies a lot of time, is you can't just make up headlines about yourself all the time. You can try, it's really hard. Companies like Salesforce have been good at that over the years of making up product launches for things that really aren't products and stuff like that. Lightning is here. It's what's Lightning? It's Lightning's inside all of your CRMs. Yeah, but what is Lightning? Stuff like that. But so it's it's hard to gin that sort of stuff up. That's just not an easy thing to do. But if you have other things that's why conferences are so important, or shows or a really cool ad campaign or a product launch or a new feature or a new customer story or, a brand sponsorship of, the WNBA or, whatever the thing is to keep people like, oh, you're top of mind. So that when they have to, start putting in their budgets that they're like, oh, we got to make sure we're considering, Goldcast.
Yeah, that top of mind piece is really key in how they've been able to do that. Just because there are so many options for consumers to be watching things. It's so easy to get distracted and watch something else, but time and time again, I'm picking Peacock, watching Bravo.
Yeah, and I think like having it be summer house is also like, like the branding is really strong. It's in the summer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know when the next season of The Mandalorian is coming out. It's not called like Winter Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the consistency and like people just know what to expect, and it's always there when you need it.
Yeah, it's why sports are so great, right? March Madness and the start of the NFL season in September and college football and all that stuff. Like you're stuck to a content calendar. You know what it's coming. Yeah. Final thing here. I just want to touch on Goldcast a little bit, and how you think about your brand. Obviously, you're marketing to marketers. How do you think about your brand? How do you think about Goldcast content for a company that helps people get their video content out there into the world? What's your thought? What's your strategy?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a big believer because we're marketing to marketers, big believer of dog fooding ourselves, or, you can say like drinking your own champagne. So as much as we can to use our own product, showcase our own product to show how we've been able to be successful because of the tools and the product that we're building. I want to be able to showcase that basically using our own example as a use case, as a case study to really be able to allow other marketers to see how it all works. And so it's a lot of building in public, a lot of building playbooks on, here's a tool, but here's how we're using it. Here's the play and here's the use case, and this is the end result. And you can actually do this by replicating all these steps. So big push and investment in creating playbooks for the tools that we're creating, because you can create software and tools all day, every day. If people don't know how to use them to reach a certain goal or objective, that's completely useless. So a big goal of mine on the team is to make sure that we are using our own tools, finding success, and wherever we do find success, we share that with our audience and our customers so they can repeat it. Because our success is our client's success, and we want that to be kind of shared and transferred. That's how I think a lot of our marketing is working really, really closely with our product teams. Right now I think there's a whole green field of space of where AI and marketing can take you. There's all this change in search right now with, SEO moving towards GEO and AEO and how video might come in and help. We're trying to figure that out. And it's really, really fun working with our product teams to experiment in different use cases. And so I think a lot of that is using our own product and being the best in class. Like any event or webinar or recording that we produce and put out there, I want it to showcase the brand the best because, if it's a poor webinar experience, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we're selling that use case. So really, really setting the bar really high on my team on if we're using our product, we have to be experts. We have to do the best that we can and going from there.
Yeah. Can I say, obviously, what I mentioned at the top that we're actually a podcast partner of Goldcast, and it's been awesome working with your team and helping people with, build better podcasts and video podcasts and things like that. I got to say, just like my biggest gripe with the industry at large is just like people just don't obsess about each second of their webinar. Like, it's like to go back to Summer House, it's like, I guarantee you that those producers obsess over the 5 seconds to show this person doing this or not. Should we show this person drinking their drink or not? Like, and I feel like B2B, it's just so long for webinars and for video podcasts and all this stuff to just like not care at all about hitting the edit button, not care at all about like getting to the content faster, getting there as quickly as you can. It's just like I'm really excited for this next phase with agents and AI and and giving us the ability to spend more iterations and revolutions on making the content better and faster and more healthy and helping people more than like all the other stuff, like is your platform working and all those other things.
Yeah, I mean, the content piece, the video content pieces was a big part of why, we started in the event space and we've really pivoted towards like AI and video. And the reason being is that we did a ton of interviewing with the marketing teams, and marketers don't have the skills to be professional video editors. Like they're not in these like pro editing software, tweaking things around. They don't have the time for that. They're outsourcing it to agencies or freelancers. And the agencies and freelancers are not marketers. They don't know which areas to cut. They don't know how to, they know what the tooling is, but they don't know how to produce it to make it serve the audience that the marketer wants. And so putting that in the hands of the marketer is extremely powerful, because now we have AI tools that make it so much easier. You don't have to wait 4 weeks for a tiny little clip to come back and then that news cycle is over. You can put that out on the same day as your webinar. And so I think that speed to market is just so important, and being able to take matters into your own hands.
Yeah, every single time when we make a show with someone, we sit down at the beginning and we say, you are the executive producer of the show. Like we're, in terms of when they're working with Caspian, we're the producer, you're the executive producer. And so it's like, if you start thinking of things like that, your content will all of a sudden get 10 times better. It's like, your job isn't to worry about like all these other things. It's like, let's make this better. How do we make this episode better? How do we make, the inputs that go into this episode better? How do we prep better? Like all these other things. Like that's what TV producers are doing. They're obsessed on that stuff, on making stuff better. They're not obsessed about like, what's the, what tool are we using to clip stuff? You know what I mean? Like or like mastering that stuff. That's
it's the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Kelly, what else? Anything that we've missed? Any cool stuff that you got coming up for Goldcast?
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we've got some really, really exciting product launches on the Goldcast front. In the next couple of months, we're launching a couple of agents, both on like the video side, but also on the event side. So being able to use AI, natural language to prompt to edit your videos is something really cool. Being able to add B-roll, like zoom and zoom out, dynamic captions, all that without lifting a finger and just kind of like typing you would to ChatGPT. And then another tool that we're launching is the AI event analyst, where we're going to be able to serve, data and insights from your webinars to help you improve in your next one, and be able to call out specifically what to do better, what features to use to be able to make it more engaging. So lots of really cool agents coming up. And I know that our product roadmap for the upcoming year is going to be even more exciting, with even more agents to help marketers do more with less.
Amazing. So exciting. Final question here. What is your best piece of advice for a CMO who's trying to figure out their brand and content strategy?
Best advice for CMOs trying to figure out their brand and content strategy. Good question. I would say be very, very intimate with your audience, whether it be doing customer surveys or actually customer interviews, being able to really, really understand their pain points and their struggles. And then I think the goal for brand and content is to, how do you become their number one go-to resource if they were in trouble? I think that's at least when I first started at Goldcast, that's what I wanted the team to think of. If they had trouble, if they had a question about an event, I want them to come to Goldcast and ask that question, which is why we built a Slack community called the Event Marketers Club. And that community has grown organically to like around 3,000 people worldwide, with event marketers asking about venues and swag ideas and all of that. And so it's how you can position yourself, your brand, and your content to being that number one go-to resource, so people come to you and you're not going to them.
Amazing. Kelly, wonderful having you on the show. For our listeners, can go to goldcast.io. Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
No, keep checking us out. We've got a subscribe for our blog, that if you do subscribe, you'll get all the updates for any product features, any great playbooks or content that we're producing to help B2B marketers. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Kelly. Take care.
Thanks.